In Comma Rules 6 and 7, we're going to talk about using commas at the end of a sentence. So Comma Rule 6 states, use a comma to set off additional information if it's after an independent clause, and that these additions modify or describe elements of the clause. Then you need to make sure that if your modifier creates confusion, you probably have to rewrite your sentence. So you have a independent clause, you want to add detail, you want to add description, you want to in some way describe the elements in your independent clause. You put a comma after the independent clause and add the modifier. Let's look at this sentence here. Nancy waved enthusiastically at the docking ship, comma, laughing joyously. Alright, so here you have your independent clause. Nancy waved enthusiastically at the docking ship. You could put a period there, but you want to modify it. You want to add a little bit of detail. So you add the words laughing joyously. Make sure that before this modifier you include a comma right after the beginning independent clause. Again, remember from above that if your modifier, or those last words of descriptions, if those create confusion, your sentence needs to be rewritten. So look here at the incorrect sentence. Lisa waved at Nancy, comma, laughing joyously. If you read that, you're not sure who is laughing. Is it Lisa laughing or is Nancy laughing? So you would have to rewrite it. The example is here. Lisa waved at Nancy, comma, who was laughing joyously. Here's another example. All the other kids watched the woman as she moved along the line, comma, her high-heeled shoes sounding like firecrackers going off on the wooden floor. So remember here that you have an independent clause. All the other kids watched the woman as she moved along the line. You could put a period there, but you are wanting to add, or Christopher Paul Curtis was wanting to add some more description. And so he added a fragment, a modifier. Her high-heeled shoes sounded like firecrackers going off on the wooden floor, making sure to put the comma after the independent clause before the modifier. Here's another example. You're writing a story and you're wanting to talk about the beautiful sunset. So you say the sun set in the west, but you're thinking, that's not very descriptive. I'd love to add a little more. So what might you add? Okay, it explodes across the horizon. The sun set in the west, exploding across the horizon. You would need to get rid of the first period and put a comma after the initial independent clause. Add your modifier. So the sentence would read, the sun set in the west, exploding across the horizon. Here's another example. Alright, so you're writing a story about how somebody was fired, or in this case, how everyone was fired. And you write the sentence, everyone in the office was fired. But again, you want to modify this sentence. You want to describe some of the elements of the sentence. And so you write that it caused an uproar. Alright, so you would write, everyone in the office was fired. That's an independent clause. You could have put a period there and end the sentence. You wanted to add more, so you put a comma, and then you put in your modifier so that it reads everyone in the office was fired, comma, causing an uproar. Now make sure and look at this second part of the sentence here. This modifier, that is a fragment. It's a dependent clause, right? If it would have said everyone in the office was fired and this caused an uproar, you would need to make sure this turns it into an independent clause on both sides, so you need to make sure to have the comma and the and. That's comma rule number 1. You do not need the and if it is a fragment or a dependent clause. So if you just have everyone in the office was fired causing an uproar, that would be correct. So again, just remember, if you have an independent clause and you want to modify some of the elements in that independent clause, you put a comma after the independent clause and then you put your modifier or your description.